Okay. So I'm trying to think of interesting applications that we can use for our little RMI capability here. And one of the things that struck me as interesting is distributed file systems. And we all have had opportunities now to read files and write files and list files. And usually when we do that sort of thing, we're working on our own file system. That, generally speaking, means that we're listing files on the C drive or on our local Macintosh drives. But it should be just as possible to list the files on a remote system. And there are many different application layer facilities for doing that, such as FTP or SSH. But what we'd like to do, I think, as Java programmers is write our own distributed file system in order to be able to go to a remote computer, list the files, traverse the file directory, and then proceed to list out the files and get the files and put the files. So that sounds like a nice thing to do, but then the question becomes, how exactly would we go about doing that? What exactly would we need to have access to remotely? Well, the way I like to think about it is what we really are looking for is kind of a remote file instance, right? So when you think about the file class, what you're thinking about is a class in the java.net package. Or is it the Java I.O. package? Sorry, the Java I.O. package. And you don't normally associate things in the I.O. package, like the file instance, with something that you can list the files on remotely. So what I did was I created my own little package, and we can kind of look into it a little bit and try and figure out what it's doing. And I call it the Distributed File System Package, or the DFS package. And you all have access to this. This is an feudals.filters.dirfilter, and no, let's see. It's in net.rmi.dfs. That's where it's at. So net package has an RMI package, and DFS is the distributed file system. It's probably a good name for it, right? I suppose. Anyway, if we look at it, maybe we can learn something about how to build these things on our own. Let's start with the interface, which provides us with kind of a high-level specification. So this interface, the distributed file system interface, extends the remote interface, which all interfaces do that are going to be remotely invoked. And then what you'll see on the local computer is the ability to get a file based on a fully qualified file name. But if you think about it, what you need is something serializable. And file instances may not be serializable, but certainly strings are. And strings, fully qualified file name strings, can be mapped into instances of files on the remote machine. So what I'll do when I go to get a file is I'll pass a fully qualified file name across the network. That'll marshal the string parameter. Someone will make an instance of the file, throw a remote exception if the file is not found at runtime, and otherwise read the whole file in all at once as an array of bytes and pass back in the array, pass back to me an array of bytes. And one thing I know is that an array of bytes can be serialized. Now the question is, what's the file type? Okay, I don't know. I don't care. To me, it's just an array of bytes, and that's all I care about. And whoever is trying to read the file is going to have to figure out how to decode it. That's not my job, right? That's not the role of the distributed file system, to try and give strong type. This is the only data type I care about at this level, an array of byte. So I want to be able to get a file. If I can read a file, I should also be able to write a file. And so for that, I'm going to pass in an array of byte, and again, a fully qualified file name. Now, if somebody says, oh, but you don't have write permission, it's whatever, then or that directory wasn't created before you started to write to the subdirectory, then it'll throw an I/O exception at runtime, which will create a remote exception that'll be passed back to the invoker. And the invoker will get a message that says, you don't have the privilege to write a file. ls is my way of listing out all the files in the present directory. So ls will return an array of string. Each one of the elements in the string will be a fully qualified file name. When I use the term fully qualified file name, I include the backslashes, all the super directories, all the C:" parts, the whole thing. Everything I need to make an instance of the file on the remote machine. If I want to, I should be able to take a fully qualified directory name and make an instance of a directory. Right? So there are a few different, I'll say, services which I'd like to provide. I want to be able to get a file. I want to be able to write a file. I want to be able to list the files in a current directory. I want to be able to make a directory. Right? Distributed file systems need this stuff. What is the current directory? Well, CD should be able to take a fully qualified directory name and change the directory into that location. So I might say something like, if I was on a Mac, I might say cd home/Kyle/attachments, and then put foo.txt into the attachments directory under the home directory. And then if it was DOS or Windows, I might need backslash instead of /. And if it was Unix, I might use colons. So all of that stuff I'm gonna pretend is not my problem. That's somebody else's problem. And the question of exactly what the separator is between directories, I'm not even going to concern myself with that. I'm going to assume you can properly formulate a directory path. Because if you can't do that, I can't do it for you. It's too hard. If I want to, instead of listing the files, I should be able to get all the directories in the present directory. Now it says here, if I put in a string, it should determine whether it is or is not a directory. Now, if you think about it, an instance of the file on the local machine allows me to invoke isDirectory. So if the local machine takes the string, makes a new instance of a file, and call the file f, it'll be able to call f.isDirectory. Yes, sir?
Have you thought about implementing a public void touch?
I don't know how to do that in Java.
Really?
You probably have to read a byte and then write the byte back out. You could read the file and then write it. But touch in and of itself as a Unix command is not part of the Java file I/O system as far as I know.
So you can't just make it's just making
What you can't do in Java is you can't change the mode, you can't make a file executable, you can't change it to be readable or writable only, you can't change its security when you're using SE Linux. There are a lot of things that you would need native methods for because they're not portable. It's not clear how you would make something I mean, I know how I would do it on a Mac. I know how I would do it on Unix. It's not clear how you do it under Windows. You probably need Microsoft Foundation class library invocations. If the same feature were available. I don't know how to do that in MFC.
Maybe I'm mistaken on what touch does. Isn't touch just create a file?
No.
No.
No. Touch is done on existing files, and it changes the modify date to make it the present time.
Really? Okay. So let's
that's the Unix touch.
Oh.
I don't know if there's another touch on some other operating system.
Oh.
But if you type man touch on the Mac, it'll tell you that touch is designed to create an update on the modified parameter.
And if you touch a file that doesn't exist?
I've never done that. Can you? How do you touch something that doesn't exist? It's like and if you clap your hand without another hand to clap against, does it make a sound? You want to touch things that don't exist? You're on a different plane than me, my dear friend. Does anybody know how to touch things that don't exist?
He created it.
It says here. It did. It creates it.
Yeah.
Now is that Windows?
No, Mac, Unix.
So on a Mac, if you touch a file that doesn't exist, it creates it.
Yeah.
What if you touch a file that does exist? It changes the modification date, right? Well, listen, you're getting a little off point.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I use touch.
Okay.
I touch things that exist. You apparently touch things that do not exist.
Yeah, but now they do exist.
But now they do exist. Okay, I'm very happy to hear it.
Okay.
So now I wanted to implement the interface so that on the local machine we'd be able to provide all of these services. I know this seems like a little bit too much detailed analysis, but I thought that the distributed file system gives you a larger kind of example. So now I've got this implementation of the interface we already spec'd. I've got a remote name which has been hard-coded in. I have in my system utils a mechanism whereby I can get the user home, and that's where I like to start the root of the file system, because I figure the user home, when you start the server, is going to have write permission. In other words, I'm assuming you have read and write permission to your own files. If I started this as the default at the root directory, like the root volume, then maybe I could get myself into serious trouble because I wouldn't have permission to do anything. Just to get the user home, there's a property which allows me to return the user home. Does anybody know why I'm getting into an argument with the IntelliJ editor? It keeps wanting to collapse all of the methods. It didn't used to do that, so it's an unreasonable. How? Preferences? Yeah, if you happen to find it, let me know. Because it's really annoying me. And it's changing all my code, which I really don't want it to do. Let's see what else we got here. The constructor has to throw a remote exception. The file instance here that's local is private and will not be passed back and forth. When someone calls getFile, what this does is it proceeds to use the fully qualified file name and then determines if it can be read, and then it reads all the bytes, and then it proceeds to return those bytes. Here it is again. Why is it here twice? This looks like a serious error. This shouldn't be here twice. That's weird. Here it's reporting it had trouble reading, but where is it reporting it?
Local machine?
Yeah, on the local console. And here it just punts, and it creates a byte array with nothing in it and just returns it. But at least it prints the error on the remote machine. Probably it should be throwing the remote exception. Right? So if it has problems reading the bytes, it should say throw new remote exception, and it should be something like had trouble reading, and maybe something like this, plus F2. There. And that will not be reachable, and neither will this, and neither will this. Let's see what else we can do. Oh, I see what he's done here. He overwrote F. So he determined if it could be read. Then he did read F2. Yeah, I don't see why you'd need to do that twice. If it doesn't work the first time, it won't work the second time. Yes, sir.
System zeros get file separator.
The file separator is the character used to delimit directories and path names.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Let's see now. Put file. Now he's using the file separator again. This is the root directory, probably my home, and then the file name relative to the home. Then this takes the data and puts it out to the local file system, and then emits this thing onto the console that I wrote this file. Here's ls, and again it's inserted this method on a single line. Kyle, how'd you make out? Did you find out how to remove the...
Somewhere in there, I'm not sure exactly where.
Yeah, I forgot where it is too. It's not obvious, and it's annoying me. That really bothers me, that I have to run around hitting carriage return all the time. Here's how you make a directory. You make an instance of the file type, determine if it's a directory. If it already exists, you print out some error at the local console, otherwise you make the directory. Here you change directories. If you find the term ... you go to the superdirectory. If the directory exists, you can change, make the new directory the directory you want. Let's see. This will get you all the directories in the current location, and that's it. There's your little implementation. You could probably just devise a test for the DFS implementation just as it is. What else do we need? Here's the main. So what does this do? Starts a server with DFS implementation and binds it. To bind it, he uses the singleton design pattern to make sure the registry is already running. Then it rebinds the registry with the remote name, which has been hard-coded into the implementation, and then it prints out, I'm waiting for invocations. How'd you make out, Rich? Oh, cool. She just did a new one for you just now? There should have been one on file somewhere. Oh, wow. Okay. That was nice of her. So while you were away, we went through the distributed file system example, which is now working as a server on my computer and has given you access to my computer if you're on my network, which you probably aren't, now that I think about it. So now the distributed file system implementation is exposed on port 1099 using the remote name, and the remote name is DFS main. So now what? Arodi, I don't see you back there. So now what? It's a big so what? The server's running. So what? Now what? So now we're done, right? I don't know. What else could I possibly do? The server's running, that's it, it all works. Oh yeah, we should test this, right? How about a client? I got a server, I don't have a client.
So that's where we come in.
Are you over there like playing Minefield games or something? I mean, what's going on over there? Okay. Blank screen, blank mind, hanging out. So here's the test program. You know, these distributed file system programs, distributed anything programs, are assumed broken until they're tested. So if you don't have a test, it's just busted. You know, so if you submit something to me and there's no test and there's no evidence that it works, you basically haven't finished your code at all. It's not finished until it's tested. So let's have a looky-loo. We've got the remote name. I've got to call this method here. It's called get remote file system, and it gives me an interface. So let's see how that works. Get remote file system makes an instance of the DFS test. It says here it gets a location and it uses the server host name. So what shall we use for the host name? It says here localhost. So that's convenient, right? I'm running it on. I'm building a distributed file system. I'm testing it with the local host. But eventually, it would be really swell if you guys could connect to my file system and then list the files or something. And that, you know, it's not a good test, but it's a test, and you're always going to want to test on some hosts, so you might as well start with your local host. Let's see now. What else do I need to do here? It's going to look up the server. How does that work? He does an RMI URL lookup. So let's see what that's about. RMI URL has been set to null, so that's not going to work until somebody sets it. And here it is being set, and it's being set to some location. So DFS test has to be given a proper RMI URL. Okay, what's a proper RMI URL look like? Well, I don't know. Let's print it. This out, Control J, using RMI URL :end quote plus RMI URL. I'm thinking it looks like RMI :localhost. Oh, with the colon following. Let's see, RMI :localhost / DFS implementation or something like that. Whatever we're calling this thing, the remote name. So let's find the main. There should be like a main here, right? Find main. Here it is. DFS test. It says math.signs show dir dialog. Closable. Get directories. Makes a run list. Lets you select a value and shows a directory. Well, I don't know what that does, so let's find out. Looks like it tries to give you a graphic user interface to the directories. Oh, look at that. So here are the directories in my file system. So I give you a nice graphic user interface. User C:\user lion. Oh, right, because it's on a, what do we call this? Windows system. So C:. Yep. So now I go to downloads. If I click on downloads, look what it did. It changed the directory to the subdirectory, and now it's listing all of the things in the downloads. And look at the local path. So when we said using RMI URL, it was called RMI : localhost DFS main. So DFS main apparently has been bound to the RMI implementation. And then the list box that you're seeing in here is giving me a list of directories, and when I click on a directory, it changes directory into the subdirectory. So in theory, if I click on autocorrelation, it goes into the autocorrelation subdirectory.
What happens if you click a file?
Well, right now, if I click up, it goes to the superdirectory. So all I've done is I've made a way to remotely browse the directory structure. I haven't tried to put a file in using this graphic user interface.
What about that tar file?
Okay, if I click on the tar file, yeah, it doesn't show that as being a directory. So all it's doing is it's giving me a directory browser. It's not giving me a full upload download capability, because that's too dangerous. I don't want to do that yet. But could we have done that? Sure. What would happen if it's a file? Where would we download it to if we're running it on the local host? Would we download it to ourselves and overwrite our own files? I haven't gotten so far as to create a graphic user interface that says here's the target and there's the destination, and then transfer the files back and forth. But we could do that. But that's just like another thing, right?
Did you hear about the Heartbleed bug?
Heartbleed? No.
No?
What does it do?
They found a vulnerability in HTTPS OpenSSL.
That sounds serious.
Yep. And so every corporation has had to renew their certificate.
Oh.
Steal keys.
It lets you steal keys. In a public key encryption system, it lets you steal the secret keys? Oh, that's very serious. Wow.
Got big news.
How do they do that?
Someone in Europe found the vulnerability last Thursday.
Oh. Well, this is all very recent and topical. So now we've got, I'm convinced we don't need to take the sine of 90 degrees here. I must have put that in there for a reason. Oh, I think it was to show you guys what singleton design pattern was. Because math is one of those classes you don't have to, you're not permitted to subclass. It's declared as final, and its constructor is private. Yes, sir.
Is it inversion of control important? Because I still don't understand it. It's confusing me.
Yes, it's important.
Seems important.
Is it relevant?
Should we be practicing it while we write our homework? That's kind of relevant.
You could do. What I have here, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have the command design pattern in my run list. And what the run list does is when you select one of the items, it invokes its own run method. And so what I'm doing is a kind of inversion of control, because I'm supplying the run method as a callback to the run list. So all of my runnable graphic user interface instances know how to run themselves, which means they expect you to supply an implementation of the run method. And you can see what it's doing right in here. It allows for geographic co-location in the code for the implementation of the action that occurs when you click on a file object. So if your goal was to try and add yet another runnable object, you could do that. So here we're using border layout, and border layout, as you may know, has a border.north, border.south, border.east, and border.west, as well as border.center. So when the elements are added, presumably to this container C, I got a run list, I got a run button that lets me go up, and the run button is north. So what that does is it puts the button up top. Then there's this other button here, which I'm added. It's called the J scroll pane, and there's the run list, and that's going to be in the center. So now if what you wanted to was supply another button that allows you to locally open a file and then put it into the remote file system, what you could do is you could add that directly to c.add new run button, and then you can kind of see where you would like to put it. Perhaps you could like to put it on the left, so that would be border layout dot left would be west, right? And then now the question is, what will the run button say? And it could be something like, quote, how about get file? Get file. And now what we can do is use the oh, I know, we could do a put file. How about that? That's even better. Put file. So then what we'll do is we'll go and get the local file that you want. File f equals feudal dot get read file, quote, and we'll select a local file, and then we could spell it properly. Select a local file, and now we'd like to get it as an array of byte, because that's what we know how to put into the remote file system. How would I get the local file as an array of byte? Well, I would like to serialize it, but first I got an array of bytes. So here's an array of byte, byte, b array equals, how about this? Reader util dot get file as one big string. I could get it as get bytes.
Get file as a string array and then get the bytes from the string array?
Yeah, if it were a string. I don't know if it's a string. How about this? Maybe there's something under feudal. Feudal dot get bytes. How's that? Fair enough, right? That'll read the whole file in all at once and make one array of bytes. Whether or not it's a string, I don't care. Right? You know, you said, let's get a string and turn it into bytes, and I'm like, no. Yeah, I mean, if it's an array of bytes, it's an array of bytes, whether it started out as a string or not. And so then, for all I know, it's an image. Maybe it has nothing to do with a string. Now I have to go to the remote file system, and I have to put the file, dfs dot put file. Now here's the put file. Now the question is, what should the file name be? Well, I've got a local file, f.getName, so that's fair, that's a string. and I've got the what do they call this? Present directory, which is I don't know. I guess I can just use the name, and it's the DFS is already at the location, so all I need is the bytes. And what's the problem here? Surround with a try catch because something bad might happen. Something bad will almost certainly happen. Let's see what I can say about this. You asked about inversion of control.
Yeah.
I had to provide a runnable interface for the run button, which would have to be declared as abstract if I didn't provide an implementation for the run method. The run method will be called back by the run button if somebody clicks on it. So when someone clicks put file, this will open up a standard file dialog interface, cause me to select a local file, read in all of the bytes for that file, and then put that file into the remote file system. Okay, what could possibly go wrong? Well, for one thing, I'm writing a file on my own file system after getting the file from my file system. So I'm not exactly sure where it's going to be writing that file to. I have to be sure that I navigate to a place I don't care about. So I'm going to create a place that I don't care about. Right? Let's do that. I'm really psyched to make sure that I don't do any damage. So let's make a directory called foo. Let's make one called junk. Make dir, junk, junk, cd junk. Okay. There is nothing in junk. Nothing up my junk. Now, I'm going to write junk into the junk directory, and then we're going to list it and see this wonderful junk. I think I'll start in the junk directory and write to the junk directory. Let's put something in the junk directory that we can recognize. Notepad, because I just want to know that what I'm writing is what I expect. And we'll call it something like hello. This could be bad, right? I'm thinking I should start this somewhere else and then save it to the junk directory. Notepad hello.txt. Yes, I'll create a new file called hello.txt. This is a test. Test of the distributed file system. Okay. Save. Exit. Type hello.txt. Okay. This is a test of the distributed file system. We go into junk. What do we see? Nothing. Okay. What I'd like to do is run my program, read hello.txt from the lion directory, and then write it into the junk directory, and then I would like to be able to show that it was successfully written to the junk directory, and if this doesn't work, I'm screwed. We can all agree on that anyway, because I've got no time left to fix it. So in theory, there should be a new button on the left of my interface, and it should be labeled Put File. So let us start the server, because this will not work without a server. How does one start the server? I forget. I think it's DFS main, right? Isn't that how you start the server? Run.
So you could run the server and the client on your own?
Yeah, I have to run the server. If I don't have a server, it ain't doing squat, except throwing exceptions at runtime. So now I'm going to run the client, right? I mean, that makes sense. You can't have a DFS client without a DFS server.
I want to know if your test was both.
Well, my test is bogus. It's bull because...
Not bull, both.
Both. Oh.
Both server and
yeah,
client.
okay. First, I thought you said it's bull. And the answer is yes, my test is bull because I'm running the client and the server on the same machine. But your test will have to be bull as well, because when you first start, you're not going to want to make this run on two machines. It's complicated enough as it is. Take my word for it. So yes, this test is bull. It's also both. I'm running the client and the server on the same machine because of time constraints and also because I think it could be broken and I need to test it simply.
Just to clarify, test is just the client though. DFS test is
Yeah, DFS test is just a client. So now he's waiting for invocations. I'm running the client. Presumably it's going to rendezvous with myself and it's listed my files, and sure enough there's a new button on the left hand side which we're calling West in the border layout, and what I would really like to do is navigate to the directory called Lion.
You're there.
I am there, and there should be something in here called oh, these are just directories. I guess I want to go to, oh, no. I want to go to Lion, C:*Lion. Up, up, up. I can't go up anymore. Oh, C:*Lion. Now I got to go down, right? Because I have to do everything in junk, right? I want to be in junk. I need to be in the junk directory before I start putting files down, or else. Or else. Now I can put in a file. Now when I do put, I get a local standard file open dialog box, which requires that I navigate to the file that I would like to put. Right, this is a local file. So now I'm going to look for C:*Lion, whatever that was called. Was it hello.txt?
Yeah.
So, these guys got lost. Here, let's turn this off. Here's a little PowerPoint thing. We could turn that off. Somewhere in here, I want to find hello.txt. Does anybody see it? Yeah. There it is. So here's hello.txt. I think I'm going to move this out of the way. I hit open, and now it says dir hello.txt, type hello.txt, and it says this is a test of the distributed file system. And now we can run a test that's not bull. Right now we're ready to try and run the server on a machine presumably on the same local area network, which means I have to change my Wi-Fi settings in order to be on guest, and then have you guys run the I don't think I want you guys to run the server, but I guess I could run the server, have you guys run the client, and then I would be able to presumably allow you to write into this directory. But I'm not keen on having you guys write into my file system just yet.
Do you think it would overwrite hello.txt if we already had that file in the directory? Would it overwrite automatically?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, in fact, what we could do, just for a good time, is we could use Notepad on hello.txt, right? And we could say, let's put in something else. Okay, and now what we'll do is we'll save, okay, and then we'll close, and now what we'll do is we'll type hello.txt, and it says bleh. Now what we'll do is we'll put the file hello.txt on top of it. I do not think it will care. So now that that's written, if I do type hello.txt, it says this is a test of the DFS system. So it does, in fact, work, such as it is. I mean, probably it should have said file already exists. Are you sure you want to overwrite? But I kind of hate that in an operating system. They should just do what you want. Even if you're removing like the root directory and destroying everything, they should just say, okay, whatever. And in fact, in Java, that's just what it does. So in that particular case, you might want to exercise a little caution. In fact, I'm really not psyched to leave that button put file there because I'm thinking something bad will happen after I forget how this works. And then I'll be kicking myself.
Comments in your code.
Yeah, comments, yeah, they're good if people read. I don't read. I'm liking the idea of code and surround with, and then I think there's a thing in here for comments, huh?
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, I see editor fold comments or region end region comment. That's a good one. That comments it out.
Does it?
Didn't it? Because there's the slash. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't work. It just put a
Control
code
slash.
surround with. There should be a comment. Fold comments. Is that it? No.
No. Just control forward slash.
Control forward slash. What's that do? Control forward slash. Oh, I love it. I didn't know that. Wow, somebody's been reading the directions. Good for you. So now it's, the little run button is commented out and hopefully harmless. So how do you uncomment it? Control.
Forward slash again. Just do everything that was
Oh.
as one set. Forward slash.
Oh, that's very nice. Okay, so now you've seen a distributed file system in action. Oh, how exciting. You can make that your final, right? You can make your own little file system. So this is one of those things that I thought was a good demo because it lets you kind of see how you can unlock the power of RMI for a real application, right? So that kind of, that's kind of interesting. Just not to put too fine a point on it, you've got interfaces, you've got implementations, your main is running your server, and your test is your client. As far as I'm concerned, you need all four of these things. You need an interface, you need an implementation, you need a way to run your server, and you've got to have a client that's going to do your test. If you don't have a client that does your test, it's not complete. So when you're doing, homework submissions for me, don't even think about submitting it without a test. Especially for distributed file system nonsense. I mean, if you didn't test it, it doesn't work. That's my assumption.
Just a client.
Yeah, you got to have a client that's going to run a test. Now, the question of how much you're going to test and how to run the test, I mean, that's almost an art, right? To me, if I can just get a couple of buttons that work, I'm happy day, But if you guys are trying to exercise something in industry, you'll want to test every single method and all the different paths before you go live with your code, because that's the professional way to do it. That's the proper way to do it. It's methodical, it's slow, it's tedious, and that's real life. That's the way it is. I've seen people do these sorts of things in a haphazard way, and I got to tell you, it's not professional. In certain cases, it's dangerous. Places where you can really get hurt are places like the machine shop. Right? You go into that machine shop and you see everything there has got a computer. It's all got manuals bigger than phone books, and if you don't sit there and read the manuals, you will get hurt. And this is one of those, you can be lackadaisical with a 90-watt laser, as I have seen some students be, and not only can you set fire to the building with it, but you can basically take out your eye. This is dangerous stuff. So it's one of those, you really got to be careful things. And you'll see the door is open, and you'll be tempted to walk in and start mucking about. And I'd say, resist that temptation. I've been scarred in machine shops, and I carry these scars with me. So I'd just like to say, it's the time to be careful. You guys can be very well educated, and you think you're real smart, and I just say, control that instinct, especially when it comes time to playing around with the bandsaw, or the Haas milling machine, or the laser cutter. Just be careful. So this sort of thing, writing your tests carefully, that's part of the you got to be careful thing. So that's my little speech. It's kind of like the brush your teeth before you go to bed speech. Don't forget to floss, or everybody will be feeding you with a straw. All right. Well, that's what I have for today. You've got a homework assignment. Don't forget to read the book, Chapter 43. Thank you very much. And if you need advising, I'm hanging out.